Welcome back to Perspective here on Arise News. There's no gainsaying that culture is a very powerful tool in shaping the upbringing of our children to become responsible adults. The family culture, which was obtained in the past, is gradually dying. In order to understand the difficulties and challenges facing parents today, we must understand the greater complexity and change dynamics that are involved. Some children are exposed to all sorts of information due to the proliferation of technology in schools, homes, and play centers, where they are able to easily access social network sites and games without parental control. Some parents may also be reluctant to discipline children because they want to avoid conflict or simply because they don't want to have their child be angry at them. Most parents would like to help their children learn, but they may not be able to do so due to various challenges like financial and work pressures, domestic abuse. Other issues can also include lack of boundaries, rejection, restrictiveness and overprotection, overindulgence, or even substance abuse and unrealistic expectations from children. This results in more tension within the home, which in turn leads to an unhealthy environment for children to grow up in. A child without discipline may find it difficult to build the emotional intelligence required to help them interact better with others, and worse still, when they mature into adulthood. We shall take a short break at this point to take a look at this next special report on challenges of parenthood.
Parenthood is a beautiful journey filled with joy and love, but it also comes with its fair share of challenges and stress. For new parents, the responsibility of caring for a newborn, combined with sleepless nights and adjusting to a new routine, can often feel overwhelming. As much as parenthood has its rewarding days, it can be very complex and it changes any individual. However, by implementing some practical strategies and adopting a positive mindset, it is possible to navigate through this stressful period with confidence and grace. Establishing a support system is very key. Reach out to your loved ones, friends, or join the parenting support group in your community. Having a reliable support system enables you to share your concerns, seek advice, and receive emotional support when you need it the most. Also, taking care of yourself is crucial for your well-being and your ability to care for your little one. As a new parent, it's normal to feel pressured to be perfect. However, it's important to remember that no one is perfect, and making mistakes is a part of the learning process. You don't beat yourself up when things don't go your way or as planned. Today on Perspectives, we will be focusing on the journey of parenthood, tips and strategies new parents can effectively use to manage stress as they embrace the joys of parenting.
Well, that's a very interesting piece that we just saw, and it just tells us about the complexities of parenthood, which we'll discuss in great detail today. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because when we come back, it will be time to switch gears to usher in our distinguished guests, Ronke Onodeko and Ekwa Abudu Akintoye. Perspectives will return in just a moment. Welcome back to Perspectives here on Arise News. It's now time to introduce our guests, starting with Ronke Onodeko, who is a seasoned businesswoman and serial entrepreneur with over 33 years experience in the energy, consulting, agriculture, and agribusiness sectors. Her board experience spans over 23 years at C-suite level on 3 continents and has had board roles in the private, public, and not-for-profit sectors. Ronke is involved with education, empowerment, and coaching. She supports literacy, financial literacy, personality consciousness, and self-development. Her consciousness, observations, and consultations on child raising for over 5 decades has shown that we have to raise our children with resilience, stability, and cultural perspectives to reverse the current negative emerging trends. She is the author of the To My Younger Self books, a compendium of authentic Nigerian stories showcasing successful Nigerians, the values they hold dear, and good success tips for an all-round exemplary life. Also joining us for this very important conversation is Ekwa Abudu Akinsonya, a lawyer, educationist, and chartered administrator. Ekwa worked as a corporate lawyer for a few years. After co-founding Greenhouse School in 1995, she went on to acquire a Montessori qualification from the London Montessori Center and later a postgraduate certificate in education from the University of Nottingham. Ekwa Abudu Akinsonya is a woman of diverse interests and talents. She's extremely proud of setting up a first-class vocational and training academy, VPDA. She sits on many boards and has authored a book called Celebrity Fashion Today to raise funds for an orphanage in Ijebu, Ogun State. She's also a lover of art, music, and travel. In May 2017, she was conferred with an honorary doctorate degree of the State University of New York for philosophy in educational management. Her latest initiative in collaboration with others is the Parent Conference, with its maiden edition scheduled for September 18, a program which is designed to impact the quality of parenting in our nation, Nigeria. Great to have these accomplished individuals in our midst. Many thanks to both of you being here. Intimidating woman.
We're happy to be here.
So glad to have you here. You know, when I was thinking of people to bring up for this thing, I chose you for different reasons, and I think it's putting a square plug in a square hole, round plug in a round hole kind of thing, and I hope that my choice will be a very wise one by the time we're finished with the session today. First, let's start. Ekwa, you know, like I was saying to you the other day, is that there's always disagreement with teachers in school, teachers and parents. Like, for instance, when a child has misbehaved or has done something wrong, I find that parents, even though they like the idea of discipline, they are reluctant to accept, you know, the crime the child has committed and start making excuses for them. Why is this?
I think that naturally as a parent, the first thing is when you hear your child has done something wrong, you're naturally defensive. So initially you're thinking, oh, is this an indictment on me? Is it, you know, are they questioning my parenting skills? But of course, you're not, you know, it's not a reflection of you. You know, children do sometimes, they can be naughty. And I think the important thing is for you to accept what the school has observed. It's a collaboration so that both of you are working together, and then you yourself, you decide, okay, let me observe, let me see if I can see these traits in my child rather than be blindsided about it. So there are different reasons why there are challenges. First, there are different discipline styles.
From the school and the
school and the parents. So,
but shouldn't there be a common ground?
That's why I'm talking about collaboration, because the school can call a child is naughty, and the teacher corrects the child, you know, calls the child up and corrects the child, and the parent might say, oh, why didn't you just advise the child, the whole class generally, you know? So, and you're thinking, no, because this child is the one who did this, and the child should be called out, and the child should be corrected, because it's for the, you know, better good of that child. And then lack of consistency. So sometimes a child has done something really bad, the child is suspended, yet at home there's no equal punishment. So you're giving the child ice cream, the child is watching TV and all that. So the child doesn't show any remorse and hasn't learned from, you know, that hasn't learned anything from that lesson. And then lack of involvement. So sometimes because parents are busy, you know, life happens, they're not involved in their children's life, so they tend to make excuses. And sometimes you find out that parents, the children themselves, children can be manipulative, and you need to recognize that. So a parent might come from the stage of, oh, my son told me that he hit someone yesterday, and he said it last week as well, that he did something that was wrong. So my son never lies. You know, you can't come from that perspective. There's no reason why teachers will just make up things about your children. We're there to nurture your child. We're there to bring out the best in your child. So when we call you and we say your child has done this, please listen and try and observe to see if you find the same thing. Don't naturally, some people just say, oh, my child is being victimized. But your child has done something, that's why we're telling you. And then parents sometimes tend to be overprotective, maybe from their own, personal experiences. And schools have to be careful now, even parents, because of legal issues. You can't,
Yeah, let me drag Ronke in so that she's not the forgotten third leg. There are sometimes parents inadvertently handle issues the wrong way, contrary to what I'm not saying that all the time they handle it wrongly, but there are times when maybe when you look back, you didn't handle the issue too correctly. And when such incidents occur, how can you right the wrong without losing your sense of authority to the child?
Okay, what I would say is from my experience, I mean, I've had, I have nieces and nephews that are in their 30s, and, my children are relatively young. And sometimes you think you have gone overboard, and there are two sides to that. I would suggest that you moderate. If I want to tell a child off about something extremely serious, the first thing I'm going to do, if you're that child that is still carryable, I will carry you and put my hands around you to give you some level of comfort and acceptance.
Well, what if the child is quite mature?
If the child is mature, take the child to a comfortable space where you've both been in a good time, so that you associate what is going to happen with something positive, and then deliver your message. So the child is not living confused as to, this person doesn't like me, this person hates me, that was really harsh. It helps to balance the message.
You're saying this is when, I'm talking about when you reprimand or you correct, then you now realize that it was your mistake and not the child's.
I would say you apologize. Be open about it.
So you, the adult, will
apologize. I will apologize.
Okay. It's important.
And I will tell you why I went overboard. And I would explain to you that sometimes emotions and the suddenness of things make you, because it happens to them as well. Children will do something, and when you call them back, they can look backwards and tell themselves that, okay, maybe if I had waited a little bit, I could have done this differently. And it happens to young people and older people.
But it's good to know that you said that adults should apologize, because there's some that come from the old school of, well, I might have made a mistake.
I'm an old school
no, but I might have made a mistake, but I will not apologize to the child, because I must not show the child that I made an error.
No, I mean, like, I don't think that's the way you can deal with the children these days. Things have changed.
Exactly.
And they're more open, and you're better off, having that conversation, having the, talking to them and saying, okay, if they've explained, perhaps you got the whole thing wrong, then you do apologize and say, okay, I'm sorry about that, but this is the way I feel about it.
We have to model adulthood to children.
Okay, what about when we're talking about, in our days, I mean, this spare the rod and spoil the child. Every parent or everybody in our generation at some point got spanked or flogged by our parents. Do you remember in school when they used to use those rulers?
On the back of your hand.
No, but that was child abuse though.
No,
looking back.
That's what we call it now.
No, come on,
in the context
of those rulers had metal.
It was expected.
But that was painful.
It was painful.
Taking away an iPad.
Okay, can you do that now?
Taking an iPad away from a child is just as painful.
If you look at it like that. So if you look at what we went through, I mean, and some children will tell you now that is mental.
We stooped down,
mental
we
abuse.
faced the corner, we had our hands in the air for hours.
My God, I remember those hours that your arms, by the time you bring it down.
You feel the lead.
What about the leapfrog?
Oh my goodness, I remember that as well. But those things are not practiced anymore today. What do you see the advantage or disadvantage of that? What do you think? Because today now they will tell you is...
Ronke said there are different methods now that you use to... Because even... spanking is illegal in some countries. You can't actually just spank a child. Even as a parent in some countries, the child can call...
Yeah, but this must also have its advantages and disadvantages.
Definitely. Sometimes you have to be authoritative, and you have to have other methods of disciplining your children. So even within the school system, the child may not go out for break. The child, you explain to the child what the child has done, may not be allowed to do some activities. Sometimes we tell them to do some work in, like sweeping the corridors and stuff like that, just so that...
Which, as Ronke said, is just as painful. Taking the iPad is just as painful.
Taking the iPad away, denying them some of their
Screen time, yeah.
screen time and stuff like that is very important to the children.
And I think even withholding, my children enjoy sleeping in my bed at night, and then I transfer them back to their bed. If you do something wrong, you don't get to sleep in my bed.
Oh, okay.
That is life-threatening for them. So you have to know your children and know where they place value.
Yes.
And then you can withdraw that value for them just to let them understand that, you know, if you do this, then you get this benefit. If you don't, then this gets taken away.
But why didn't our parents do that? Why was it not the same then?
Their parents...
Instead of the ruler...
To be honest, I mean, like, what they did, it was a reset button. It helped a lot of people.
Well, but do you think it also made us a bit stronger? Because I think emotionally, we are stronger than the children.
Nothing can come our way that we are not ready to deal with.
Definitely.
And it prepared us for disappointments and failure, which is another topic I want to bring up. Why are the children of today's generation very ill-equipped for disappointments and failures?
Because their parents are trying to protect them. So you don't allow them to have small failures. So you want to protect them at every stage. And I know that it's natural for us to be protective, but we cannot live life for our children. And so what happens is you protect them and shield them, and then at a certain point, you're not with them and you're not there. And then the first disappointment, they're having mental issues. It's colossal. So parents have to let children understand and change their relationship with failure. So that if you feel it's a stepping stone for you to reorganize yourself, you know, look at what was wrong, and a challenge for you to correct and do better next time. And we need to have children who are resilient. Parents need to understand that children need to be able to fall and get up again. They need to be able to get back from challenges. And that is the only way you can protect them in this world. And even
children are actually resilient. If a baby, a brand new baby, falls out of a mother's hand, because a lot of mothers fall asleep breastfeeding or bottle feeding children, nothing happens to them. So inbuilt is a mechanism for resilience. We erode it, and then later in life try to build it. I'll give an example, a little short story that I usually give people. If you are a mother, and in the process of your pregnancy or whatever, you had a word, and somebody told you that this child is going to become a president in their adult life, you will raise that child differently from day one. You will know that this child is going to be a leader, so they cannot be the child that's biting their fingernails, that doesn't pay attention, that doesn't learn to listen, because that's what leadership is all about. So I think parents haven't tried to connect early enough with the vision that they have for their children. Because if you do, you will raise your children with... Push them into challenges because you want to see them how they bounce back, so you can start correcting them and building them up for their future. And I think that's really where there's a disconnect. Oh, this is my baby. No, this is a leader of tomorrow that's going to lead people, that's going to change nations, that's going to change the destinies and hold the destinies of people in their hands. So what do I want to put into that child? I'm an older mom. I had my children after 50. By the grace of God,
Speaking of older mom, remember I was saying to you yesterday, Kwa, that I noticed whilst we were all growing up, I noticed that children that grew up with their grandmothers are a lot more mature and a lot wiser. I used to wonder, and you could always tell the difference between children that grew up in their home. Why is that?
The grandparents do not mollycoddle children like they do.
So is that your case?
Grandparents are authentic. And they are not politically correct. Because parents now, they can't say things because, you know, you're not being politically correct. But grandparents, they're authentic. They tell you the way it is. Even my mom, she speaks to my children. I cringe, but I know that at the end of the day,
she's saying the right thing.
We're going on break soon, okay? And you're going to tell us the difference between the way you bring up your children and the way younger mothers bring up their children. So grab your cup of tea, as I always say, and we'll see you. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Perspective here on Arise News. Ronke, Yagba, as they say it. How do they say that in English?
Grandma, older
mother. Older mother. You are an older older mother and you had your children, you know, at a relatively mature age, so what do you think you do with your children that the younger mothers do differently?
Okay, first and foremost, my children are not a reflection on who I am in terms of affluence, my sophistication. My children are a complete different entity from who I am. So I'm not trying to show off my person through my children. And that's where there's a lot of confusion. Or, you know, when people say my children behaving in a particular way, then they know we're from this kind. My children are vision issues for me. I know where they're going and where I would want them to sit in society in their later years, and that's my only focus. So you get some moms thinking, oh, I want to make my child love me. My love is already inside of me as an older person. I already know what I love and how to get the love. So my child's loving me every day, all the time, is not an issue. And that's where some parents get to the point where they can't tell them off. If I tell my child off, she'll be moody and keep herself in her room for a few days. Please feel free to stay in your room for a few days. But please, while you're in there, self-reflect, self-moderate, correct and understand why there's this breakup. So we'll break up to make up. I'm okay with that.
So you're not afraid to lay down the law as and when necessary?
Because I know where they're going, where they're heading for, and what society is going to need from them in the future.
I think that's why there's a difference.
I think it's very important.
When you see how well behaved, not that I'm saying that young children,
the children will be children.
But the children of older parents are a bit more disciplined, I think, especially if you go about it, putting, you know, ensuring that lines are not crossed.
Yes.
But speaking of which, speaking of mothers, I remember you mentioned issues, different types of mothers.
Okay.
Or primary school children.
Like
or school children.
All
basically.
the tiger mom and
so
all
what do you mean? What's tiger mom?
The tiger moms are like, it was something that was raised from a book called Tiger Moms by some Chinese lady. And it's about mothers who are, in their own fact, they're not spoiling their children. They're very tough love. You know, they want their children to be super achievers, so they're planning, tutoring. The children are waking up at 4 o'clock to practice music for 2 hours. They're playing tennis. They have to have scholarships, and so they're pushing and pushing and pushing the children. And at the end of the day, those children are not motivated outside of their parents. In fact, some of them end up being rebellious, because they've been
under too much pressure.
They achieve for some time, and then after a while it gets too much and then they stop. Then you have the helicopter moms, the moms that are, oh my goodness, fighting for my child. They go onto the field and they go and grab other people's children and say, why did you say this to my child?
No
they
way.
go to the teachers.
They have their children's voice.
They do homework for the children. They go to the teachers and say, oh, why did you say this to my child?
My child is not the lead role in the play.
Why isn't my child, why doesn't she have the lead role in the play? And at the end of the day, those children are not, they're not independent.
Balanced.
They're not balanced. They can't do things for themselves. Then you have the overindulgent moms, those that just leave all the parenting to school. At the end of the day, you have to be a parent. Children need structure. And it's important that you are loving and supportive to your child, but authoritative and you're firm.
Yeah,
so it's a delicate balance.
What do you say to mothers who are just equally as busy as their husbands are, and you know their careers are extremely demanding?
As I say, you have to go back to what are you trying to make out of your child?
Yeah, but in Nigeria of today, some people don't have the luxury of having time in their hands.
Make sure that you have a responsible community that is parenting with you. So either grandmother, grandfather, your siblings, make sure that you choose right godparents that for that child. And there's some basic principles, teach them resilience, teach them to be authentic. You're who you are. Parents need to tell their children where they're at. You can't pretend to your child that you can afford something you can't afford. You need to be authentic. And do you remember the Yoruba Seroti Iletotiwa? It's very important. Remember where you're coming from.
Remember where you're coming from.
It's very important that you yourself, that home, you understand where you're coming from. You know that in this house there are different values. And you must remember
you know what?
Then as Ronke said, vision, Children now, you have to teach them emotional intelligence.
You know, I've had challenges with domestic staff for
I was just going to
children. And the average, not even the average, 80% of the domestic staff you will get in this day and age in Lagos, fresh from the village, haven't been tutored or mentored or nurtured by anybody of any standard, and are coming with baseline baseline knowledge, even their, I'm trying to be delicate with the word, their cleanliness, their attention to detail is the very, very barest minimum. And then you're out there with a high-flying job, trying to make lots of money, and somebody from the village is raising your child. When you get the money, how are you going to undo the damage that has been done? So do you really need... I've taken a career break.
Yeah, but you took a career break. You can afford this. I'm talking about
people who cannot afford it need to go back to the drawing board. Your child doesn't have to be in a school where they're paying 80,000. Drop it to the 30,000 one. Then adjustments to be made. You have to, because your children's education, I say, is 80% from home and 20% or 30% from school. So if you're not there, and it's a nanny who doesn't know anything, that is giving the 80%.
They don't have high quality nannies, even if you have to pay for it.
You don't have high quality nannies.
Even the best,
the so-called governesses and
exactly.
If you can afford that, then you can afford.
But that's what I'm saying. We're talking about those who have careers. If you can afford that,
then you can afford to step down on your career.
Yeah.
If you can afford an $800 nanny, then you can afford to take
$800. And they didn't pay them that much.
I mean, like,
I know that
me when my children were young, I used to drop them at my mom's after school.
And you're lucky you have the privilege of...
My mom is 89, so that's not even an option for me.
No, but wait. What I'm saying about these governesses, you're saying that if you can afford it...
A governess?
Yes.
Then you already have money. That means you can take a break from work.
Yeah, because you want your children to have the best education money can buy. So if you can afford to pay for the governess, isn't that okay? Rather than...
No, I'm not saying it's not okay.
The standard of the school of the child.
But don't delegate your parenting to a governess.
I don't think people intend to do that.
Yes. People don't intend to do that. But I think also...
But sometimes it happens.
I think when you come back home, try and find out. Always sit down with your children and find out what they've done and make sure that you're creating that time. Because I do know that there are some parents that really, if they don't work, there's no food on the table.
Both parents.
There is that. Both parents. So it's, just
it's really prioritizing.
The time you have with your children is
quality.
Very
quality time, yes. And then
if they did a social experiment and they put a nanny and a mom and they put a baby, in this day and age, where do you think the baby is going to head?
Well, that's a bit of an unfair question. No. That's a bit, Ronke. The truth of the matter is, you had your baby at a time when you could afford to.
Yes.
There are a lot of young couples today, like Ekwa said, who need both income to even maintain a semblance of a normal lifestyle.
Then maybe they should only have one.
Well,
you see, people are not sitting back and counting the cost.
But majority of them don't have 4. They usually have 1 or 2
even with 1 or 2.
Times are hard. Nobody can even have. Nobody has the luxury of having 4 children.
But it's even better now that there's home. Working from home, leaving early, doing.
Now that's another. That working from home. Remember, we were discussing that. Yes. As COVID made a lot of people, a lot of these young people, work from home and got them used to it. That in itself too is a bit of a problem because a lot of them
don't want to go back to work.
So that in itself is an issue.
It is, but I think that the Gen Z, as you call them, I think they work They work smart. Not necessarily hard. So that, yes, I've seen that. Okay,
but for somebody like you now, for instance, is it better for your teachers to work from home, even if
no, there's certain industries where you cannot do that. But there are also certain industries where you don't actually need to be physically there.
Well, true.
So education is different because it is essentially that interaction face to face is very important. But there are many, professions that you can work from home. And I mean, I've seen people work effectively. Some people are more productive.
But we still need human interaction.
Yes,
and we need a
definitely.
community.
Yes.
And you learn from watching people do things. You learn
Yes.
from being around activity. And there's always that cross-pollination of ideas
Yes.
and attributes and social consciousness that you don't get if you're locked away in your room,
Yeah.
no matter how productive you
Exactly.
are. So we have to balance that as well.
There's something else I want to bring that I found very disturbing that we discussed was sexual awareness with children of today's times. I mean, Ronke's jaw almost dropped when you told us what you
When
told
I
us.
said that
No, but is it true?
a survey was done in schools and in Sunday schools, so church, and the guy came up, said that the average age of sexual awareness was between 8 and 10 in Nigeria.
My goodness.
In Lagos.
8 and 10.
Between 8 and 10.
As Ronke said, dude, what do they even know? How do they even know what to do?
Look, there are different circumstances. Okay, I came across one. I went somewhere and you know how children are. Somebody came to report a child and said, oh, this child said this child is having sex with somebody, and this child was 8. So I said, why would you say something like that about the child? And I said, so I called the child and said, yes, I've had sex.
Please, how old was this child?
8. And
Did they know what, did they know what they...
Let me tell you what happened. So the parents had traveled and left the 2 children with their grandmother. Grandmother, you know, relaxed, letting them watch, you know, they're on their iPads and all that. And he said he was watching a movie. They were having sex. And he decided that he wanted to try it. So he persuaded you know, grandmothers usually have these young girls. She herself was either 12 or 13. So he
Convinced the
nanny to try it.
Oh, it wasn't her that convinced him. He
No,
convinced
it
her.
was, he said it. He said it. He said he was the one. He said, I did it. I was the one who asked her because I wanted to experience what they were doing. So they were having sex for 2 weeks, right? And then when the children went back home, this boy was looking for the nanny. And we were like, the parents were like, what is happening? And then the whole thing unraveled. And of course, so the boy went through therapy. You know, I had to be very calm. I mean, with the person next to me, and we were just like, okay, so you've gone through therapy. He said, yes. I said, so are you able, do you still feel, do you get urges? He said, yes, sometimes. I said, what do you do? He said, oh, now I know I have to control the urges and all of that. And, you know, he was very mature about the conversation.
What I found most scary...
And his parents were there to support him, so they're helping him and they're monitoring him and all that.
But apparently in mixed schools, there's a lot of sexual harassment.
Yes.
And sexual molestation from the students, male students to the girls. In fact, a survey said it's 77 times higher for a student to abuse another student rather than a teacher abusing a student. So what I want to ask is that what are the telltale signs that you see in children when you know that they're either being sexually abused or they've become sexually aware? What are the little things that you might notice in their behavior?
Sexual
patterns?
awareness. First, their behavior. Sometimes you notice a sort of withdrawal. Then also, when children start having conversations, you know, knowledge of sex that they shouldn't, you know that there's something.
Wow.
Inappropriate knowledge, engaging.
Look at that girl now. That girl, that video. Remember that video?
Yes.
Of that girl that was having sex
Then,
with 4
when
boys.
your child is being very secretive, you know, it's a sign. Drastic change. Then, drastic change in friends.
Oh.
That's
another
very,
telltale.
it's a telltale sign.
What kind of friends? I mean, how...
You know, you know, because the normal home friends are not doing that, you know, or something. And then all of a sudden they just bring one friend out of nowhere and they're, you know, always wanting to go.
At what age is this?
I'm talking at from 10. From 10
Because
onwards.
I'm just wondering that when
These
they say
are-
they're having sex, do
No,
they,
these
is it
are-
real sex or
No, didn't you? The last
acting?
No, there was a video
last
of a
case,
girl.
She was 10.
She was 10 and she was having sex with one of the
It was
boys.
viral.
And there were 3 other boys
Yes,
beside her. And
so
she looked like she knew what she was
It's
doing.
what's happening. It's because of exposure. Now, if a child has been abused, that's different. You will notice mood swings, depression, anxiety. You notice regression. You know, even young children that are abused, that nannies have abused them, you notice bedwetting, maybe they start sucking their thumb again or something. You notice fear. avoiding certain people. They see someone, they run away. You notice they can't sleep well. Sometimes they overeat or they're not eating. So there's so many things, changing sleep patterns, changing self-harm, and then sometimes they draw. There was a case where in school, a child in playgroup just started crying one day. And we were like, what is wrong? And he said, oh, the driver is going to kill me and my sister. And I said, why? And he said, because when they are on their way to school, they stop somewhere to pick up pastries. And that the driver tells the girl to sit in front and touches her. And has told both of them that if they ever tell anybody, he's going to kill
But why
them.
do parents allow that? Why do you allow
I
a
have
driver
seen parents
to take your child without a nanny?
The nanny was there. The nanny went in for a split second to pick up the pastries.
No, I've seen
that
drivers
is
pick
what
up
this-
girl children
Yes.
and the girls sit in front.
Yes,
Exactly.
and it's not acceptable.
No.
In the list, the child should be at the back. And so
If
we
there's
went
no
to the
nanny.
girl. The girl was 7. She was in an older class.
my
And
goodness.
I had to call the parent to say, this is what we've discovered, and we're not going to allow this driver to pick this child today. So you have to come and pick your child yourself. And this driver is not allowed to come here. This is what it's. And she's like, no, you know, this guy, he was the driver of my parents. He's my
She was even
driver.
still justifying.
No,
I mean,
I
was
think
she
she
fair?
was
Shock.
She was shocked. And then, you know, you don't want to believe this thing because also she's working in Ikeja, the convenience, but, you know, she had to just, you know, change things.
And,
so
yeah.
these things do happen.
I think another thing to watch out
let's-
for is when you have a nanny who sleeps in the bedroom with the children. You have a boy child and you go in there for a spot check and find your son in the nanny's, either on the mattress where the nanny is sleeping. I don't care what the story is. Oh, he was crying at night, he had a nightmare. Put him back in his bed. That's the start of comforting a boy child and exposure to sexual comforting. And it's a way of, they groom children into these things. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yes.
So one has to be aware and start looking for telltale signs where, you know, one nanny favors one child of an opposite sex, or the cook is always making snacks for the children. The children are flocking and hanging around in the kitchen. You need to have your eyes open.
And parents need to start having appropriate conversations, appropriate age conversations. So when they're under 5, you tell them, don't let them touch you here, here, here.
You name the
Then
part.
You name the
You
parts,
name it.
and you let them know. As they grow older, puberty is starting, you let them understand the implications of, you know, sex. So parents have the conversation.
But what about,
schools as well have the conversation, and schools need to create a safe space for the children to be able to have that conversation.
I was just going to ask, you know, you have some parents who are like nouveau riche, and they want to compensate for lack of what they had, what they didn't have when they were young, and they overindulge their children. Do you understand? You find that your children are now friends with these children, and sometimes are influenced by the material things they see at their friends. You know.
I just got back from vacation.
How do you now draw the line?
And I was telling somebody that my children probably have never been into like a retail store more than 5 times in their entire lives. I don't take them into shops shopping where there are lots of things and, oh, I want this, I want that. We don't do that. There's no reason why a child needs to be in a retail space. If you look back at your life, maybe in twice or 3 times a year, your parents take you to Kingsway, Leventis, or UTC. Now parents go on vacation and they take their children into shops every single day. So children know this. So my children have no understanding of, or when you go out, can you bring me back, or can I have?
Still relatively
yeah,
young.
but
Yes,
the thing,
as
okay,
they get older, if they haven't acquired a material culture, a retail culture, it's hard for it to build up to the point where.
but let me-
sorry, okay.
What I'm saying is that some children, even though they've been brought up not
Yes.
to attach too much importance to material things, they don't have the emotional intelligence or mental capability or confidence not to be swayed or...
How many play dates are they going on?
No,
Going to
no,
other
because no,
people's
I know of
houses?
instances where a friend of mine who has many cars, for instance, I mean, he's a car freak. He has about 17 cars or so. But his children, there was a time one of his sons came home and said, Daddy, I want you to take me to school tomorrow. And they woke up and they went out. And when he was going to go with the usual car, the guy pointed to the Rolls Royce and said, no, this.
Maybe he told his friends.
No, because his friend
dad
in school had boasted about his dad having a Rolls Royce. And he wanted to also show his friends that his father also has one.
It's retail.
So how do you now make sure you install that?
A car is a car.
Yeah, install sense of independence, not make them too
conscious about
too swayed.
As I said, I think you just need to let your children know that this is your stand. This is what we can afford, and this is good. You know, you should be grateful, and let them understand that the things that are important are not so much the material things.
Experiences.
The things that are important is character, a good name. You know, things like that. We need to start having those conversations.
It's important because they are too young.
My dad always told me,
this.
live your life in moderation. And that's how he was. And two things, your fear of God and living in moderation. So it didn't matter what anybody had. We were more than comfortable. But I had that thing in mind that I must live my life. So I was not really
I grew up in a
excessive.
civil service. Both my parents were civil servants.
Yeah, but you also have parents who are pivotal in this kind of expression.
Yeah.
In other words, they haven't paid, I'm sure you know.
Yes.
They will not pay school fees, but
Yeah,
they
they've
must travel.
traveled. Yes.
The children come back, oh, where did you go to, where didn't you go to? Oh, if you say you went to
turn
Ghana,
left or right
do you
in the
turn left
plane?
or right? I remember that, do you turn left or right?
Asking a teacher,
Yes,
do
do
you
you
turn
turn
left or right
in the plane?
I think that's the parents.
So you see that,
Yes,
no, but
parents
to moderate.
parents are also part of reasons why some of these children turn up the way they turn up. I mean, look at children whose parents, some children who used to school abroad, and all of a sudden the parents can't afford school fees.
I had an incident on a flight.
Some of them
there
even
was
go
a
to
young girl
GoFundMe.
sitting behind me. She was weeping for like 20 minutes, and I got very concerned. I thought, I hope something hasn't happened to her, somebody hasn't molested her, or someone hasn't tried to touch her. So I went, after hearing her for so long, and she said this was her first time traveling premium economy.
Are you serious?
Oh my goodness. I had to sit her down and tell her, I'm a businesswoman.
Are you
in premium
serious?
economy. It is a privilege for you to be in an aeroplane.
I thought you were going to say she was crying because she was being sent back home.
And that, this was her first time, and all her friends were in business class, and she was
Can
the
you see
only
what I'm
one
saying?
here. This girl was, I thought something damaging had happened to her. And I tried to explain to her that your parents are spending a lot of money.
Imagine that.
One, to send you to school abroad. Two, to even get you a ticket to come home. We had a guardian when we were in school in England. Holidays, my parents were civil servants. We went to our guardian's, which was an American. That's where we spent our holidays. We didn't come home, and my mom didn't come. So I tried to talk to her. I mean, I don't even think
So imagine somebody like that, if her parents say they can't afford, and she has to come back to Nigeria.
Come back to Nigeria, she'll be traumatized.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
This is part of being resilient.
And this is also part of
I was shocked when she told me what
the Naira has been devalued, and many parents can't
there are people who are even going to
GoFundMe
to raise fees.
Yes.
And a lot of children have been traumatized by the change of scenario. A lot of children now who are going through depression are going through
I don't even think a child should be on business class.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
For any reason.
Yes.
I don't believe so.
So I mean, even if your office pays for it or you have air miles, please help your children for the future.
Because you don't prepare them for disappointments, like you were saying.
Like I was saying, yeah.
You don't prepare them for disappointments. And I don't know, social media and TV too, how much influence...
Everybody has taken a photograph of themselves in a business class seat on a plane, and then other people think this is the norm.
Oh, how do you know? How do you know?
I mean,
There's,
like
no. There's this place in Lekki.
And you
do you know there's this place in Lekki where they have the inside of a private plane?
Oh,
in Lekki,
so you can go and take selfies there.
Oh no! See, look, they are green. There's a place.
You see, I mean,
there's a place in Lekki where you take pictures and it looks as if you are in a private jet.
You see, that's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
It is.
And this is also the influence of social media and TV. I think social media and TV too has had quite an adverse effect on children growing up today.
Definitely.
I think it has also played a
Parents
major role in their mental state.
You can lock some apps. You can moderate the amount of time. Once holidays end, that my children don't see their iPads till half term.
Okay.
They know where it is. They can see it. They don't even ask for it. During the school week from Sunday evening till Friday evening, There's no screen time in my house. No television.
Are you serious?
So the excitement of Mama is tomorrow Friday is a big deal. And they're still young. Yeah. So I know it's more difficult with older children.
For mature children, that won't be. No,
but there are other things you can reduce. You can allow them to, but have a timer. Yeah. You can put a timer on a device. So after a particular time, certain things don't open anymore.
Yes.
So I mean, there are ways parents can help children.
I think you also talk to your children, because I mean,
parents should lead by example.
Lead by
their parents who are glued to their own phones.
Yes, that's very true. And social media, what you have to let children know is that a lot of it is fake. It's not real. A lot of it is made up.
But so they're impressionable.
Yes,
that's the thing.
So that's why you need to. That's why you need to be solid about who you are and your values and your name and your character, and you let them know. You know that you need to monitor their screen time, because they go on social media. They have become, you know, addicted to it. They're envious of what other people are doing. They become depressed because they don't have all this, and a lot of it is fake.
Yes,
and parents need to show who they are and who they were.
Don't lie.
Take your child back to Yaba if you lived in Yaba. Yes. But this is where I'm coming from.
They live by Yaba.
I grew up in Yaba.
I grew up in Yaba. And I tell people that Ilupeju is in Mushin local government area. I said, so we're not.
No, I think some parents live vicariously through their children.
Yes.
What they decide, they want to now, and but that's where you overindulge
and wanting to belong to.
I don't cross the bridge.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so scared. Oh, my children had to go to.
Who is your father? Who is not your father?
Limit screen time. Monitor what your children are looking at.
Another thing,
model good example.
Yes. Another thing I want to ask: what about children and staff? Some children are extremely rude to their staff, and their parents allow it.
Well, that's
okay. So I will say that first and foremost, the name. You call your staff is important. Miss X,
yes,
Mr. That, you do not call your, even if they're your staff, I don't call my driver or any of my domestic staff by name, because children mimic adults. They will call those people by name. Even if you say, oh, he's uncle to you, no.
But they're allowed to discipline your children if they you know, maybe tell them to go and face the wall.
I'm lucky, I'm at home a lot. So I'm there for a child to be prepared, and I watch my children. When they do things and they're falling out of line, in front of the nanny, I self-correct instantly. Like, you don't talk to people like this. I don't talk to auntie like this. You don't talk, and you're a child. So, you know, you have to portray who you want your children to be so that they can copy you. So if you're rude and careless in your speech to domestic, your children will pick it up. And that's where they usually pick those things up from.
Well, let's round up.
I think from
almost rounding up now.
So, this is a very interesting conversation, because we are actually Greenwood House School Initiative. We're planning a parent conference, first of its kind. It's on the 18th of September, and it's at the Civic Center. It's free. All you need to do is register at parentconference.com.ng.
Okay,
and
that's good.
It's actually, our theme is navigating the complexities of parenthood. So when I saw this, I just started laughing. And it has very interesting speakers, the Commissioner of Education, Mrs. Adefisayo.
Thank you so much.
Our keynote is Jumoke. And we have sessions on communicating with your child, making your child feel valued, social media influence, how you can monitor and all that, and different breakout sessions.
Thank you so much, Ekwa.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronke.
Thank you for having us.
Such a robust morning, and I hope that everyone that has watched this would, as I always say, learn one or two things.
Yes, come to the conference.
They would come.
I'll be there myself. So
Ronke is one of our panelists.
Oh, yes. Good. I'll be there.
Thank you.
Okay, we are apt to forget that children watch examples better than they listen to preaching. Parenting doesn't have goals or benchmarks or blueprints, but it does have a purpose. The purpose is not to shape our children's destiny, but to help them shape their own. It isn't to show them the way, but to help them find a path for themselves, even if the path they take isn't the one we would choose for them. Of all the balls they ever wear, this is one you should not drop. It's not a question of choice. To be in your children's memories tomorrow, you have to be in their lives today. And always remember, like I say, life is a learning curve. Thanks everyone for watching us. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Ruth Osime. Goodbye for now. See you next week.